The biggest change was in how I spent my time. I started going deeper with fewer people, going to fewer events, doing, I did do cold calling. I was doing cold calling in the mornings and I stopped that entirely. And then I took my morning time back and instead would have one-on-one coffees with people or send handwritten notes or do other things that weren't as soul crushing as cold calling.
Hello, and welcome to episode 221 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts, along with strategies for success. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform, leave a review or a rating. That would mean a lot to me and help others find the show. Tell a friend about the podcast and help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Ashley Harwood is a realtor, author, national speaker, trainer, coach, and contributing writer for Housing Wire. She specializes in working with introverted real estate agents around the world, helping them grow their businesses without changing who they are. She's just released her book, Move Over Extroverts: How to Build a Successful Real Estate Career as an Introvert. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Ashley. Ashley, it's so good to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're going to talk about the work you do, Move Over Extroverts, and you also just put out a book with the same title. But before we get deep into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I have a background in real estate. I still work in real estate sales as my day job. And starting out in that industry, I had no idea that I was an introvert. I didn't know anything about it. I was introduced to Susan Cain's book, Quiet, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, a couple years into my real estate career, and it was very impactful. So I made some changes in my business and my life and how I manage my energy. And that translated to really significant increase in my business and just better quality of life overall. So I knew I was onto something. And then fast forward a couple more years, I actually started coaching and teaching classes and helping other realtors who are also introverts. So that's what I'm doing now is I'm still selling, I'm also teaching classes, coaching, and I just released my first book.
Awesome. We're going to get into that. So, I think you were like myself and many guests I have on where you thought something's wrong with me, right? Was that your experience? You're working in real estate and you just feel like there's something wrong?
Yeah,
What did you feel like was wrong?
I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was part of a company that had a pretty robust training curriculum, so I was learning what to do and I was doing the same things that other people in the office were doing, and my results were completely different. And so I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm not seeing these results that everyone else is seeing, and I'm really tired all the time. I was burning myself out without realizing it. So I just thought that there was something that wasn't clicking. And of course, my mind went to, well, maybe I'm just not cut out for this.
Right. And you mentioned Susan Cain, and she probably has gotten the most mentions when I ask these types of questions as far as impact. And so she's done a wonderful job. A lot of it is introverts saying, "Yeah, I'm okay." You know,
Yeah.
how did you get a hold of her book?
I was seeing a therapist because I was exhausted all the time and couldn't figure out why. So I went to see a therapist and she recommended the book. And because I was on the road all the time, I listened to the audio version first, and then I went back and read the hard copy. And I remember sitting in the car reading and like listening and just started crying, just started bawling, like, oh my God, this is an actual thing. And there's a reason why I'm feeling this way. And I'm not crazy. And here are the ways to work around it and make it work for me. So it was very, very impactful.
Yeah. And of course, this show, we talk a lot about the strengths of introverts and needs of introverts, strategies for success. What's a strength or two that you have because you're an introvert?
I'm able to go deeper with people faster, and I'm a really good listener. So that kind of dovetailed into coaching one-on-one because I was kind of a natural coach anyway, even when I wasn't trying to be. And I think that's a pretty universal introversion strength.
Yeah. And so we can go deep, but also we want to go deep.
Yeah.
And that's a big misunderstanding. We definitely like people, we need people, we like to connect with people, but we like to get into the deeper conversations and we don't like to stay in the shallow for too long.
Yeah, the shallow is actually pretty draining.
Yeah, yeah. And and it is also a strength. We can build deep relationships, but we have to understand those differences.
Yeah, absolutely. And lean into them because I think that's a really key factor in most businesses is being able to be a good listener and build relationships with people.
Yeah. So what have you learned about being a good listener as an introvert and success in your business and real estate?
It's really important in real estate because you're not selling a product as much as you're helping people find the right solution. And it's a big deal. There's a lot at stake. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of pressure. It's where you're going to live. So being a good listener and not just trying to sell somebody a house that they may or may not want is really important. And a lot of my time when I'm training, especially if I'm teaching a class to a group of agents, like new agents, it's usually a mix of introverts and extroverts. I have to retrain the extroverts to not be too salesy with people. I have to talk them down. Like, we're not selling people houses. We're guiding them through the process to make sure it's what they want.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because, sometimes there's just like what feels like traditional ways of doing things. And I think most people don't really want to be sold to. They just really want you as a guide, like you're saying.
Right. And again, I think that's true across every industry for the most part. People don't want to feel sold to. They want to feel empowered to make their own decision. And so, quote unquote, salespeople, our job is to give them all the information and help them make the best choice.
Yeah. And I think we can be excellent listeners, like you're saying. I do always throw in there, when we're having conversations, it needs to be a conversation. And if someone's doing all the talking, doesn't mean the introvert's listening. We should be active listening, but not talking is not necessarily listening. So definitely whoever's in the conversation, introverts, extroverts, it needs to be a conversation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I always throw in with listening, I think we're really good observers too. So we're listening, but we're listening for things like that maybe aren't being picked up on. We're good at seeing what needs to be done that's not being talked about. All those kinds of things.
Yeah, agreed. I also think we're very, for the most part, like internal processors. At least I am. I have to just quiet and not talk to anyone as I'm working through something.
So if people have been listening to this show, that's really what the definition is we're internal processors. We're
Yeah.
tuned into our inner world more often than not. Extroverts are more focused out here more often than not. And that's where everything comes from. So it's funny I say, I'm not an introvert because I need to recharge, but I need to recharge because I'm an introvert, because I'm an internal processor. If I'm focused out here for too long, if I haven't had time to think, that's when I need to recharge. But it's the recharge part doesn't make me an introvert, but it's because I'm an introvert, if that all makes sense.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
But we do process internally, and that's where all the things that we're talking about today come from because we're deep thinkers. Great strengths come from that. We do need some time alone, and it's not just to recharge. It's like you're saying, I got to get some work done here. I need to focus. I need to think. I need to plan. So there's a lot of reasons why we need some time alone too.
Yeah, for sure. I struggle with where do I work? Because sometimes I work from home and then sometimes I like to go into the office. But when I'm in the office, I'm constantly being interrupted and it makes it really hard to get any meaningful work done. I mean, I can stuff envelopes and do busy work, but anything that requires some thought, I need complete silence.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. How do you manage where you get your alone time or just manage your energy? What have you learned about that as an introvert?
I've developed a skill of being very in tune with my energy and my needs. And that took years of paying attention and really, really learning how my system works. Because that doesn't come naturally for most people. And it certainly didn't come naturally for me. I had to work at it. So now I'm at a place where I know what I need. I know if I need alone time, and I'm confident enough to take it and make it happen as much as possible. And then if I need it and I can't take it because something comes up out of my control, I know how that's going to affect me, and I'm going to need even more time afterward. But it really affects how I set up my day to make sure that I have the highest energy at those crucial moments of the day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it right there. It's a lot of understanding our differences is, what do I need? What alone time do I need? What recharge time do I need? And figuring that out. And it's hard because there's other people that have different needs than you, right? So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, it's sometimes we're made to feel like our needs are not valid or even strange. It's like, no, I just need a little time alone right now. I need to close my door for a minute or whatever it is.
Yeah. I do think that there's an art to having that conversation with another person, particularly if it comes up in a family or somebody you live with. And a lot of times, other people might be offended and take it personally that you need your alone time. But if you can explain it in terms of your energetic needs, hopefully the other person's understanding and gets it. And I'm thankful that my partner is very understanding. He understands, but it's taken a while to like really be able to. Now he can tell what my needs are at the same time I can tell, versus in the beginning of our relationship, I would have to explain it.
Yeah. So sounds like he's an extrovert.
Very much so, yes.
Okay. And you had to work through that.
Yeah, we did. And a lot of, patience and communication, all key aspects of a relationship that translate to how each other's energy levels are.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so important too. So, we're definitely talking a lot about work type of things, but our personal relationships are so important too. And it's like, hey, I love you, but I need this, and I'll be better if I have this little bit of time. And then also, there's plenty of times where we each need to compromise a little bit or bend a little bit, to do something that the other person wants that maybe isn't our favorite thing, those kinds of things. But understanding and being able to say, hey, this time alone I still love you, but I really need this for this
Yeah,
reason.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's good to be able to have not only compromises, but if you're really needing that alone time and the other person is really needing to be around people, that's okay. You can do separate things. Like there are times when I tell him I am so beat, I need to be on the couch for a couple hours, but I can tell that he needs to be around people. So I'm like,
Yeah.
go off and do your thing, go hang out, go to the bar, whatever, and I'll be here.
Yeah, that's
No
great.
hard feelings.
Yeah. Something else I do sometimes is, you know what? Let's do this and pick another, schedule something else, instead of just saying, no, I can't be with you. Say, right now I need this time, but let's go do this or let's spend time together, And so it's not a rejection. It's just like, let's make a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that can apply to friendships and business partnerships as well. Just having that communication and expressing your needs and also asking the other person what their needs are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've busted some myths. Let's make sure, because like I said, that's another key part of this show. Is there any other introvert myths you want to bust today?
Hmm. Yeah, we have touched on a few. Oh, one myth that comes up a lot in my world is that introverts aren't, that we don't have social skills.
Okay.
And I had this conversation with someone yesterday about this, and they were like, "Oh, I'm so impressed. You're so personable and good with people, and you can have a conversation, and you're an introvert." I'm like, "Yeah, those are not mutually exclusive. Like you can being an
Funny.
introvert does not equate having poor social skills." So I think that's a big myth.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of work to do still, Ashley,
Yeah,
because,
we
and
do.
so I can tell you this though. I mean, if you are an introvert and you don't understand introversion, that can take its toll on your social skills. As we were talking about understanding, hey, I I need this time, or another really big thing, like because we're internal processors, one of the big epiphanies for me was I think before I speak in general, and extroverts often speak in order to think. And so if you don't understand that, you can feel socially awkward. If you are thinking, trying to think of the most important thing you want to say, the other person is just talking, 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 you can feel very awkward. But understanding this is how I normally am going to work, it's normal. I'm going to think of a great thing. It's a strength of mine. This other person needs to talk things out, and that's fine. That's a strength of theirs. That can really help. But yeah, we're not all socially awkward. And if anybody is, that's a lot of why I do this show is because you can get more confident.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, there are introverts who are not as socially skilled. On the flip side, there are extroverts who are not very
Oh,
socially skilled and they just can't read the room and just keep talking and don't shut up. So
yeah.
I don't think one equates to the other.
No, no. And they're shy extroverts,
Yeah. There's
and
all the combinations.
yeah. And so just, a lot of it is, I'll say probably the approach to overcome shyness is going to look a little different from introverts to extroverts, but both can be shy, both can gain confidence
Yeah,
if it's
absolutely.
lacking. And some introvert, like we said we both struggled like something was wrong with us, but there's introverts that have never felt that way, that just know who they are, know what they need, and they're just confident. And I've met lots of people like that too.
Yeah. I would say one other thing I do want to mention is how important it is not to compare also, because I feel like I get this question a lot from people. I like to speak on stages. I feel very confident teaching my own content on a stage. And it's because I wrote it myself. And people always come up to me afterwards and they're like, that's another thing that introverts can't be public speakers. And they're like, how do you do that? How do you talk? I'm like, I just do. I don't know. I like it. It comes naturally to me. But if it doesn't for you, don't try to force it. Like don't say, "Oh, I have to be like this other person," or "I have to do this because this other person's doing it." Figure out, I teach this a lot to my real estate agents because there's so many ways to go find clients. Focus on what feels more aligned for you and what comes naturally and go all in on those things and don't worry about what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like with public speaking, a lot of well-known public speakers are, guess what? Introverts.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a lot to say. That there's another myth right there. People think we don't
Mhm.
have, because we're always thinking. So we have a lot to say, and the stage is a good place to be able to say those things. And like you said, you know, if you prepared the message and you prepared adequately, it can be amazing.
It really can be, especially when it's a large stage and you don't have, and it's not a classroom setting. You don't have to answer questions. You have no interaction with other people. You just get up there and talk and do your thing, and then you're done.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else you want to share about what you've learned about being successful in public speaking as an introvert?
I personally need my recharge time as soon as possible afterwards. So
Okay.
I will hang out because that's kind of part of the gig, right? You hang out and talk to people after and take pictures and stuff. But then as soon as that's done, I'm not going to the bar. I'm going to the hotel room for at least an hour, lights off, under covers, just quiet, cocoon, and then I'll be ready to go and meet up with everyone after. Like
Yeah.
that's really crucial for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, even today, I'm enjoying this conversation with you, but I don't have anything planned for the hour after, just in case
Same.
I need to relax.
Yeah, I'll probably cocoon after this for a little bit.
Yeah. 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 And that's a difference. Extrovert gives a speech, they might be ready to give the next one, right then.
That's my boyfriend. He's
Yeah.
like, "Let's go. I'm all amped up. You can
Yeah.
see his energy increasing and it's wild. And he can see mine decreasing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So you're learning all of this, and then how did you decide to then be a coach and, call yourself Move Over Extroverts?
Well, I had a business coach that I was paying, and he was like, "Your business has kind of plateaued. It's successful, but what's the next step? What's the next level? Because you're kind of just stuck here at this one level." And I had always enjoyed teaching classes just in my little office. And I said, I really want to help newer agents. I want to help them get into the business. And he essentially was like, well, that's great. Everyone calls himself a real estate coach and trainer in our world. What can you help people with that's different? What's unique about you? And immediately I thought, I can help the other introverts because there are all these classes and all this training and coaching, but nothing for the introverts. And so it just came to me almost immediately, and I leaned into it. It's taken a lot of different shapes, and I've failed in a lot of ways with it, but I've also had a lot of fun and a lot of success with it as well. That was 6.5 years ago. The name Move Over Extroverts came from me trying to buy a domain name, and my name is not available. There's a famous wood turner person who has my name. And so I was on GoDaddy just trying to find names, and everything I could think of was taken. Introverts rule, whatever. And I was getting frustrated, so I just typed in Move Over Extroverts, and the domain was available. And I was like, all right, I'm done trying to find something. This is going to be it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a stereotype or another myth we could bust, like, oh, real estate agents can't be, or introverts can't be real estate agents?
Yeah, that's a huge one. In fact, one of my past coaching clients worked for a small brokerage, and her broker said that to her. He said, introverts can't be successful in real estate. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy's out here saying that. A lot of people are thinking it though, and it's it's not fine, but if other people think it, whatever. If the introvert themselves thinks it though, that's a problem. So that's who I'm trying to reach, are the people like myself who are having that self-doubt. And my whole mission with the book, with the company, is just to give them a lifeline and give them some tools and some encouragement that actually you can be one of the best real estate agents and use these skills to be amazing in this business.
Yeah, I love that.
You know Ryan Serhant?
No.
He's he was on Million Dollar Listing, that TV show, and
Okay.
now
Yes.
he has his own Netflix shows and stuff. Anyway, I heard him speak a few years ago, and he talked about being an introvert. And he has this huge media personality now, and no one would think he's an introvert, but he is. It's kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, most jobs can be done by an introvert or extrovert. Just we may succeed differently. We may have different strategies, and it's all good. But like you're saying, I love that you're saying because of your strengths, you can be wildly successful in real estate or whatever
Right.
it is that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Hone those strengths and use them to tell the extroverts to move over. Like, now
That's
I'm leaning
right.
into it.
All right. Well, congratulations on your book. It's out now. Tell us
Thank
about your
you.
book. Same name, Move Over Extroverts.
Same name. I was trying to think of some other clever thing to call it, and then I just realized I already have a clever name. I already have the website. It's already all branded. I think it's a good name for a book, though. So it's actually called Move Over Extroverts. It's how to build a successful real estate career as an introvert, the first of its kind for real estate. And the intention, it's two intentions. One is a little morbid, but one is like, if something happens to me tomorrow, this book is my legacy. If I can't run around and teach classes anymore, at least the book is done and people can buy it. The second thing I'd like to do with this book is bring it to other industries eventually. So have a version for insurance salespeople and a version for mortgage lenders and all these different sales industries and have it really be tailored to that. So then they have, a resource no matter what industry you're in. So that's my long-term vision.
Well, that sounds wonderful.
Thank you. I think so.
What's in the book? Give us a little peek into the book.
It's really three parts. It starts with how to manage your energy, which is where it all starts. And then it goes into how that translates to your calendar and managing your time. And then the third section is a little bit more tactical, how to find clients, how to find buyers and sellers. And then there's a fourth section as well that is like doing open houses and showings and some of the more real estate specific things and how to do all those things as an introvert.
Yeah, so tell us about that. What advice do you have for networking, for finding clients that looks different for an introvert?
The beginning piece of it is to lean into the things that come naturally or the things that don't sound absolutely terrible. Like a lot of real estate sales training teaches cold calling, and there are very few people I know who love cold calling. So it's like, yeah, you can try that, but don't feel bad or don't feel guilty if that's not your thing. So start with where you're already at. Start with who you already know, like lean into groups you're already a part of, organizations that sound interesting, like a book club or a running club or some kind of hobby, because then you have a commonality with people and it's easier to build relationships with them. So I think those are the best ways to start building out your client base. And then just making sure that it's always coming back to not burning out. So if you're going to run around like I do still and spend time with people in the world, it's important to be intentional with how that's scheduled so it's not too much.
Yeah, so how do you avoid burnout?
I am very careful with my schedule. I know that I will need time after a big event, and I can't have too many networking events in 1 week. So, like two or three, maybe. Like that would be the max, I would say, for me.
And how do you look at your calendar? Like, how do you make plans? Do you have certain times where you look at it every month and then every week, every day? How do you manage that?
Hmm. I look at it definitely every day. And towards the end of the day, I'll look at the next day and the, future days and make sure that I have a combination of productive work that's bringing in new business, time to work on the existing business, personal time, like that's my recharge time. And then also leaving white space in the calendar is really important, I think, to have just an hour or two every day where it's just catch up on all the stuff that comes in. So that way, that helps avoid burnout because it helps you to not like feel that mental clutter. It's almost like I think of it as like doing the dishes in the sink. If you do that every day, it doesn't pile up too much.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But if you let
So,
it sit there for 2 weeks, then it's going to be a disaster.
right, right, right. So even when you said cold calling, I admittedly got just a little tiny bit of anxiety because that's definitely not for me either. And there's lots of ways to network and get new clients, but let's just talk about the actual networking type events. Like, how do you work those as an introvert? What have you learned about that?
Well, they're all kind of different, but they're all kind of the same. So I will take breaks pretty often. Like if anyone was watching me, they would see me go to the bathroom about once every half hour just to get away from everyone. Or if it's in a hotel, I love an event in a hotel because there are always corridors and different floors and places to find a quiet spot. So I take a lot of breaks. I also don't try to talk to everyone. I try to connect with maybe a handful of people, handful of new people, and then if I'm going to an event where I know people already, I'll try to say hi, reconnect, whatever. But I'm not trying to meet 100 people. It's just not, it's not for me. I'm going to see who I click with. I can do a little bit of small talk, but I'm going to know pretty quickly if I'm going to want a 10-minute conversation with someone or a 60-second conversation. And if it's a 60-second person, I have to like get out of that conversation so I'm not wasting my energy on them. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's true.
No, you have to be strategic about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because so you or I, if we had to, you know, we could bounce from person to person, but it's gonna not only be draining to us, but it's not gonna be as effective. We're not gonna have those deeper conversations that are gonna be impactful for us. So while our extroverted friend may just really thrive in that, we're not going to, and we don't need to apologize for it.
Agreed. I also think of larger networking events as sort of a funnel to find, it's almost a necessary evil, like to go and find a few key people that I want to build relationships with. So that's what I'm focusing on, are who are the people that I want to have a coffee with later one on one.
Are you making those plans ahead of time sometimes?
Do you mean
Before the
at the event,
No,
making
before
coffee?
the event. I mean, are you sometimes aware of
Um,
who might be there or just mostly it's once you get there?
Occasionally, but mostly most of the time I don't have
Okay.
access to who's going to be there in advance.
Another thing you said is sometimes, we might just need to take a walk. And I
Yeah,
know that a lot of times we feel uncomfortable being alone, like people are, looking at us like we're strange, but it's just a normal thing just to take a walk outside, give yourself a break.
yeah. Make a phone call if it feels too awkward. No one
Yeah.
knows. Just hold up your phone to your face. No one knows.
Right, right. Any other advice for networking events? I mean, definitely it's good to go in with a plan and have some good, deeper conversations.
I always advise, and I do this too, is I go in giving myself permission to leave whenever I want. I don't feel like I need to stay for the whole thing. Like when my energy hits a certain point, or I'm just not feeling it, I'm out, guilt free.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love that one. Don't feel like you have to stay till the end.
No, and oftentimes it's not worthwhile to stay to the end. It's rare that I stay for an entire networking event. I'm usually there for an hour max.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you want to share? Just how your real estate career changed when you realized I'm an introvert. I have these strengths, but I also have these needs. Is there anything else that changed for you?
The biggest change was in how I spent my time. I started going deeper with fewer people, going to fewer events, doing, I did do cold calling. I was doing cold calling in the mornings and I stopped that entirely. And then I took my morning time back and instead would have one-on-one coffees with people or send handwritten notes or do other things that weren't as soul crushing as cold calling. And then my business went up because I was able to actually build more relationships with fewer people, but that resulted in referrals, especially in real estate. That trust has to be there. It's not like, oh, I met this person today and now I'm gonna sell my house with them. Like it takes time to build that trust.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were cold calling, did you feel incredibly drained afterward?
Oh yeah, it was the worst.
Yeah, I can imagine. I haven't done a lot of it, but enough to know that it's not for me.
No, no. And it is for some people, and that's great. If that's for you and you're listening, if it's working for you, keep doing it. I don't want to be discouraging, but if it's not for you, that is more than okay. Even if, like in my business, a lot of us who came up a decade ago in this industry, this was hammered into our brains that this was a really important thing. And if you're not doing it, you're going to fail. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of undoing that training.
Yeah, this is the way to be successful.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
one
think,
way. There are 100 other ways.
yeah, and you talked about that you're planning on making books for other industries, and that's the whole thing. It's no matter what it is, public speaking, leadership, being successful in real estate, it's there are more ways to approach our path to success, and introverts are going to do things a little differently sometimes, and it's okay.
Yeah. It's actually a good thing because clients want to be approached a different way too.
Yeah. And, we're using our deep thinking skills to listen and understand the client's needs and really try to help them find what they're looking for.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, for
right.
sure.
What else do you want to say about your book?
You can buy it on Amazon. I would love if you wrote a review. That would be amazing. And if anyone wants to talk about bringing aversion to a different industry, please let me know because would need to partner with an expert slash influencer in these other industries.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to say before we go, Ashley?
Just that I'm in Massachusetts in the Boston area, so I am also selling real estate if anyone wants to move.
Sounds great. And where can people find you and find out more about you and the work you're doing?
My website, moveoverextroverts.com. You can find all my programs for introverted agents and just what if I can be of help to you at all, everyone listening, please reach out.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Ashley. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. I hope you take the time to explore other episodes and learn from other amazing guests. Remember, if you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there is now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the four-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link in the show notes. And I'd love to connect with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts and links to social media for Quiet and Strong and much more. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. So many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.